Hello everyone and welcome, Spencer here. Today we are talking about game plans and win conditions and how they are both the same but different. So I'm going to try and speed through this one so it's not as long and waffly as normal. So I've got a few examples. Not Tivit, that's it. There we go. So enchantment deck. Let's just go through win cons first. What is a win con? Win con is the way that you're going to win the game. Whether that's a specific card or an effect on a card type thing, and like something that you deploy onto the battlefield and it goes, you win the game. Like Thassa's Oracle. If you meet the requirements, you win the game. Yeah, it could be a way to win the game. So it could be like Sir Gwyn with enough equipment on to hit for commander damage, so she's lethal damage. Yeah, it could be Brain Freeze. I'm going to mill out my opponents if I have enough storm count. You know, it could be a convoluted combo of turning everything into enchantments, turning all those enchantments into creatures as a global effect, but having on your board state some way to protect your land so they don't get destroyed. So it could be something as ruthless as that, as annoying as this, as simple as that, or as like crazy long-winded as this. So win conditions. We've also got things like Simic Ascendancy, which is a bit of an alternate win con, which is a bit like Thassa's Oracle. You know? Now, game plan. Game plan is different. Different but the same. Same but different. So, if this is our deck and we're trying to get these three cards out and this is the way that we win the game. So if we decided when we built this deck that I'm going to win by getting these three card combos into the battlefield, so it basically destroys everybody else's stuff, aka lands, so they can no longer play lands, so they can no longer interact, and all they've got left is what on their board state, so I get in such an advantageous position that I can dominate. Yeah, if that is the win con, that's the way that we're going to win the game, beat our opponents into such a level of submission that they just want to cry, go fetal and crawl on the table, then we need a way of getting there. We need a way of finding this creature reliably, finding these enchantments reliably. So that could be done in simple ways of drawing cards, so we could stack the deck with lots of ways to draw more cards. Luckily this is an enchantment deck, so there is a lot of enchantresses, and then you can play lots of enchantments to protect yourself, so Pillow Fort effects, so you've got like Propaganda, Ghostly Prison, what's the other one? Sphere of Safety. Sphere of Safety. So you can protect yourself so people are less likely to attack you or come at you type of thing, so you can then play more enchantments to trigger your enchantresses to draw more cards. Yeah, you could also play tutors in order to find the cards that you need, such as creature tutors and enchantment tutors. Yeah, there's a few out there, plenty fine. So that's the game plan. Protect yourself, find these cards, deploy these cards, opponents go fetal. Next one, mono blue, storm. Yeah, so our game plan here is to get enough mana, to get enough cards to cast, to make our storm count high enough to cast Brain Freeze to mill everybody out so they die on their upkeep. Alright, so this is done in this specific deck. You could do this multiple ways. Some people do it in Izzet decks, using things like Bergi, Stormkiln Artist to make treasures, make more mana, cast a lot of cantrips to repeat the cycle to generate enough storm count. There's the card 1000 Year Storm, stuff like that. There's a lot of, when you cast copy spells, stuff like that, that's what a lot of people do in Izzet in order to get the storm count high enough to do this. In this deck, this is a Gadwick deck, it's about getting enough artifacts on the battlefield, so mana rocks that tap for at least 2, whether that's colourless or coloured mana, to be able to deploy Icecrown Scepter to make infinite mana, and then cast a bunch of spells with buyback for infinite amount of times. Obviously you can never say infinite, you have to say a specific number, so you cast it 500,000 times, and then you divide that by 3 and mill everybody for each of those storm counts. Bear in mind somebody could have a Flusterstorm and counter all copies of it. So yeah, so game plan, mana rocks, infinite mana, make infinite storm count, then cast Brain Freeze. Yeah? Game plan, win con. Game plan, win con. Same with Tivit, protect yourself, deny everybody else from winning the game, play stacks pieces, yeah, tutor, find your win con, win the game. Yeah? Protect yourself, find the win con, deploy, win. So Gwyn, equip with big equipment. So game plan is to play as much as equipment as we can on the battlefield to be able to protect Sir Gwyn. when we've got enough equipment on the battlefield, we place her Gwyn, we put everything on, so she's protected, she's got haste, hexproof, anything else you need, and she can hit for lethal damage straight away in one turn. Okay, so game plans, win con. Get yourself ready to win. Get yourself ready through serious effects to win. Get yourself ready through serious effects, win. Build up enough advantage, get yourself ready, protect yourself to win. Okay? The reason I'm like drilling that home is because I think there is a lot of decks out there that don't have that clear direction, and a lot of people might be like, oh well, I'm playing mono green, it's a creature deck and I have Greater Hoof Behemoth. Okay, that's great, so how are you going to get Greater Hoof Behemoth? Yeah, are you running what's the 1 mana instant that lets you tutor a card to the top of your library to be able to find that once your board state's big enough? Are you running any type of ways to draw cards, rage good, stuff like that? You know, so there's these different ways in order to make sure that you can reliably get that win condition. And there is an argument here of, oh, it depends on the power level you're playing at and how efficient you want your deck to be. Not everybody wants to go to this level, this is CDH level, but these are all at slightly different levels. You know, the Gadwick is probably the weakest of all decks because once you stop that combo or I don't get the Ice Crown down, it's dead in the water. There's no other way to win apart from like, I think there's like a, what's the mystic card that makes the 1/1 bird? So just cast a spell every turn and make a bird and then hopefully get him with flying damage. So it's really, really simple. Obviously the Tuvasa is my longest running deck and has multiple win cons in it. So that's not so bad. But so Gwyn as well, like if you don't get that protection on her and you get her on the battlefield and she dies, then she's an expensive commander. It gets harder and harder to recast, and when you're in Mardu, it's hard to ramp. So, they all have their downfalls and ways that which they can be stopped, which obviously affects their power levels. But we need to have ways when we're making decks in order to win the game. And this has been brought to my attention a lot lately from some opponents that I've been playing, but also because obviously I've been building Davros, the Dalek creator, and he has a great game plan. Game plan is to deal 3 damage to each opponent, to trigger him, to generate value for myself. Yeah, if the opponents have no cards in their hands, they can't play magic, therefore they're less likely to do things and interact with me, which means I'm ahead. If they don't discard those cards, I'm going to gain cards, to be able to find more cards to deal more damage, and slowly whittle them down. But that is where the game plan and the win condition are so aligned, it is hard. There is no singular card or combination of card in this deck which is like, once I've drawn enough cards and found those cards, I can deploy that to win the game. I do have a Torment of Hellfire in there now, which is pretty big win, or pretty big advantageous position, I should say, that it puts you in, but doesn't say you win the game. So that's kind of it's a bit like this. Like, if you Torment of Hellfire enough that everyone has to sack their entire board in order to stay alive, you're so far ahead at that point that it probably is just wrap it up, call it game. Which is a bit like this. People can't play lands, they can't play the game. So there we go. Which is why it's so important to play artifacts and permanents, stuff which have abilities that allow you to interact with your opponents. But more on that in another video. So yeah, here we are. WinCon game plan. So when you're building your decks, I know a lot of people have spoken about this before, about, oh, you need to have a clear path of what your deck wants to do. But it's not just about what it wants to do, it's also about how it actually wins. So we want it to win through commander damage, we want it to win through combo, we want it to win through mill, we want it to win through abusive means. So we want to whittle our life totals down by 3 increments of 3. You know, so it's having that game plan and then it's going, right, what's the win? What's the actual card that I can deploy or combination of cards I can play to make this win? Is it a Greater Hoof Behemoth? Is it a Simic Ascendancy and we'll put loads of counters on stuff? Is it Approach of the Second Stone and cast that and then tutor it back up and then cast it again? You know, it's how we're getting to those details and minutiae, and I can't sit here and say, oh, you need to do this, or I need to do this card, and this card is better, and you should use this card as a win con in this deck. You know, there's a million ways to play Tivit. There's a million ways to play Gadwick, and so Gwyn, and Tuvasa, and any other commander out there. Like, so, and you don't have to build things in the stereotypical way. Like, we can build things in different ways. So, it's all custom to you and personal to you. And that's kind of what I want to import with you guys here, is that have a game plan, but also have a way to win. If it is through combat damage, and you are just going to go wide in tokens and have a way to deal that combat damage, make sure you've got a way for giving them evasion so they can get through to deal that damage. It could be something as simple as is it Skatewing Spy, which is like a common or an uncommon from like Ravnica. Everything with a +1/+1 counter on it gains flying. Yeah? Or Archetype of the Imagination, is it? All your stuff gains flying, nothing, everybody else's stuff loses flying and can't gain flying. Yeah? So if you're going wide on a board state, cards like those could work very, really well, especially if you've got counters on them for the Skatewing. Then it's like green, obviously, is the Creator of Behemoth situation, although there's one of those in white now, which I think came out in Wilds of Eldraine. You know, if you're relying on Voltron for Commander, see if you can find a way of, once you've got your Commander equipped up, maybe have a few cards in your deck which allow you to do extra combats. So you can attack, kill one person, and then bam, cool, sorted attack, kill the next person, you know, and then one person's got one turn to answer you and deal with all your stuff before you can then start hitting them next turn. So this is the thing, it's win conditions, game plans are slightly different but almost very well aligned. So have both of those thought processes in your head. Because I think as we're building decks, we can sometimes get very carried away of like, oh yeah, this is really cool, I want to do this. And then it's like, sometimes you've leaned away and gone away from what your actual commander wants to do, you know, or your commander's doing something and you're like, oh, okay, like, I've not really playing any cards that give me a payoff for what the commander does. I'm going to go back to my Davros deck to talk quickly about that. Like, Davros in itself, it triggers on dealing 3 damage. So on your end step, you then create more value with the Dalek, and then your opponents discard cards or you draw cards. So it's a value engine in a sense. You need to do something to generate that value. Yeah, it's all well and good saying that's the way I'm going to win by doing 3 damage, increments of 3 constantly. But Davros doesn't do that on its own. So you need a way of getting a payoff from that. So that's when somebody discards a card, you can then draw a card, or with somebody discards a card, you gain mana. You know, you need a payoff for what you're getting your opponents to do. So if you're playing a mill deck and everybody's milling stuff, you might want to have ways to pull stuff out of their graveyard so you've got access to more things, you know, so you can find more win cons, stuff like that. So that's your game plan, but then you've obviously got to find the win. And that's where we talk about lines and stuff like that, of like, oh, I've got these cards out, but how can I connect the pieces in order to get to the win? So yeah, I'm not going to ramble on any more about it, because I think that's pretty clear. Have a game plan, but also have a win condition. You know, it could be an alternative win condition, it could be combat damage, it could be commander damage. However it is, could be mill, it could be burn, you know, it could be approach to the second stone, whatever, all win cons. But just have in your mind when you're building your deck the way that you're going to get there and then how you're going to do it. And they are so slightly different. Sometimes they're very closely aligned, but sometimes they are very different. And that will encourage you to have more efficient games, because when you're building that deck, you know what you want to do. You know, you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It doesn't matter what my opponents are going to do. I know I need to do this, but if they deploy something that's dangerous, I can then deal with it. Yeah? So, game plan, win condition, can't stress it enough. Go and check all your decks, goldfish them, just look through them, and then be like, okay, this is what I'm doing, but how do I win? Okay? If you've got both those things, you're smashing it, you're absolutely fantastic, love it. If you've not got both of those things, you're still doing great, but you just got to tweak it a little bit. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and as always, appreciate the support. You're fantastic, love it. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.